Nothing to look at here, just an average Habsburg family portrait.
Alright everybody, let's get this straight. Charles II of Spain was not a bad king. Or at least he wasn't for Spain. And I know, everybody loves to meme about him. And sure, I do it as well. But the reality is that he was just a sick guy who shouldn't have become king in the first place. So in this video I will try to explain why Charles II wasn't that bad for Spain. But why should you believe what a random guy on the internet tells you? Hi, I'm Ragnar, and yes, that's my real name. I just finished my master's degree on history, and this video is based on one of the papers I had to write for the degree. What I'm trying to say is I spent way too much time researching it just to not use it somehow. So, why am I saying that Charles II was not that bad as everybody says he was? And it's not only because I wrote like 30 pages for my bachelor's thesis. The short answer is that most things you have heard about him were somewhat true, but totally distorted by propaganda. In reality though, Charles II wasn't even that dumb. The dude spoke like 4 languages. That's more than I do, and now that I think about it, it's more than most of us do, I guess. The thing is that he wasn't even really in charge during most of the time that he sat on the Spanish throne. I mean, look at him. Would you let him rule a major European power? No, me neither. But don't get me wrong here. His father, and his grandfather before him, weren't in charge of Spain either. And to be honest, they were even less involved in state's affairs than poor Charles was. It's funny how we think about these old powerful kings during the age of absolutism, like Louis XIV, Henry VIII, but at least in Spain, that hasn't been the case at least until after the War of Succession implanted the Bourbons here. But wait, what was happening there, and why is all of this important for the history of Charles II, I can hear you ask? You see, before Mr. Jawline here, both kings, creatively called Philip III and Philip IV, were more occupied with the pleasures of life rather than steering politics in Spain. Their real ruling was done by a valido, who was a favorite noble of the king, a sort of prime minister before prime ministers were even the thing. This valido, in theory, was entrusted with all state affairs, only in absence of the king. But since the king was more likely doing such kingly things as hunting or partying, which I totally get, if I were a king, I would do the same thing. Isn't that right, Juan Carlos? The most famous of these validos was the one of Philip IV, the Count Duke of Olivares, who was obsessed with restoring the old glory of the Spanish Empire, and started a whole bunch of wars, mostly over Italy and Flanders. But the only thing he got out of these wars was a totally broken Spanish economy, who couldn't support these wars anymore, bankrupting the Spanish crown not once, not twice, a total of 4 times. Also, the constant state of war Spain was in led to a real demographic problem, since a lot of men died, who were supposed to pay taxes after all, but couldn't anymore, since they were dead, you know. It didn't help that there were constant bad harvests and epidemics, which led to even less people being able to fight and to farm, and to pay taxes. So once Philip IV, the father of Charles II, died, Spain was in a real shit show, to use a technical term. But since Charles II was literally a 4-year-old child, his mother took over until he was old enough to rule. Notably, without a valido this time. The usual infighting and power plays later, Charles was old enough to rule. But everybody thought that if he ruled for his own, Spain would cease to exist, eaten by France or overtaken by rebellions. Since everybody knew that Charles wasn't fit for rule, again, look at him, he was ill since the day he was born. The nobles put the most trusted person in charge. This person changed fast, since the nobility feared losing power and influence if they couldn't get this empire thing running again. Priority number 1 was the recovery of the economy, which it actually kind of got right. Until Charles died, and all major powers in Europe would duke it out to see who would be the next king of Spain. During this war, a lot of propaganda was produced by the French Bourbons, in order to justify the future claims of Spain, mostly centering on the illnesses and disabilities of Charles II, because humans have always been the same. And now I ask you, if you had to bully a dead guy for his illnesses, getting a whole-ass empire out of it, I'm pretty sure you would bully the shit out of him. Or am I the bad person here? And when the Bourbons finally won the war and got the throne of Spain, they produced even more propaganda to make their dynasty look cool. Not like those pesky Habsburgs, who were so inbred they produced a monster Charles II. At least that is what they told everybody who would listen. In the end, all this propaganda stuck, and everybody thinks that Charles II was the worst king ever. But that is what you get if you follow the divine principle of monarchy, I guess. So, just to recap everything. Neither Charles II nor his father and his fathers before him were really in charge during the time as rulers. But in the case of Charles, that was actually a good thing. Also, he wasn't that bad at everything. Later propaganda made it look far worse than it really was. And at last, if he had ruled for more time, Spain could actually have recovered from the century of war his family had brought onto Spain. Hey, you actually made it to the end of the video. And you know what that means. You are obligated by law to like and subscribe now. So better do that before the internet police finds out. And join me next time when I convert some paper I wrote into something useful here on the internet. Thanks and bye! That jawline. That beautiful jawline.